The left then is a corrupting influence. The left that has almost silenced the gospel in the public square, corrupted the honesty of individual people, fostered apathy for the welfare of our fellow men, assigned help to the poor to a bloating, increasingly centralized government control. It has overseen the destruction of the family unit by severing the ties of sex to procreation, love, and committed relationships. And to the highest abomination, the slaughtering of children in the womb, up to and including the murder of children after they have been born in New York and Virginia. All of these attempts to throw off the rule of God. But these people are not finding happiness, are they? We see them when things don't go well. We see them on their knees, screaming their little lungs out at the universe, hoping there's someone there that listens to them, the very one person they have rejected. It's rather sad. But this increasing misery from the left increases its grip on their lives. In Romans chapter 1, familiar text again. How does it work this way? It seems that for so long they have been ascendant. It seems for so long that they have been gathering more and more power to themselves and more influence. But of late, they are failing. Have you noticed? They are failing. In Romans 1:18 it says, "For the wrath of God is revealed." This is present tense. This is active now. "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Because that which is known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. For even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their speculations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools." One of the greatest problems that the left faces now is that they are going extinct. They are failing to reproduce. Think about that. Under the guise of freedom, they have said that it is a lifestyle option to have children. And so they have one or fewer children as a couple, sometimes none at all. I guess that would be fewer. And so, yes, math is not my strength. And so, not only that, but so they are not replacing themselves. The current demographics, according to Dr. Steve Turley, current demographics is by 2050, the United States will largely be compromised, or the population will be composed largely of evangelical Christians, Mormons, and the Amish, who have an average of 11 children. I just heard the ladies take a breath. But their own policies are being turned upon them in their foolishness. They're spending money they do not have. And sooner or later, as Jerry Falwell used to say, you're going to meet yourself coming around the corner. You're going to run out of anything else to spend. Margaret Thatcher said, the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of someone else's money. And there is this natural destruction built in to whatever policy, whatever arrogance that men think that they can have when they try to reject the rule of God over their lives. This active wrath of God is breaking the power of the left in this country and throughout the world. We can be encouraged. This may be a very closely run thing, but we can be encouraged. We don't have to despair, but it's going to be a close one. American exceptionalism is, to repeat that, is our nation was conceived on a Christian worldview, and it came from so many different voices, and all I want to do, I'm just kind of reading this sermon. Normally I don't read them, but this time I just want to read some things. You might remember this quote from Ben Franklin. when the Constitutional Convention, because the United States started out as a confederacy. They were afraid of central government for good reason. Look what they had experienced. And so they decided that they would set this thing up as a confederacy, and it didn't work very well. The same thing the Confederate States of America later were experiencing that was really hard for them to function. They didn't learn that lesson very well, I guess. But when they formed the Constitutional Convention, they came together, and remember, part of that is in order to form a more perfect government, right? The other one hadn't succeeded, so they're creating a new one. But they were hopelessly bogged down in all the endless discussions and points of order and the disagreements and the individual states' needs, and on it went, and they got completely stuck, and it was just dragging on. And Benjamin Franklin, who I think is wrongly considered to be a deist, I'm not entirely clear what his theology was, but as he grew older, his theology seems to resemble much more what you and I believe. So I don't know where he was exactly with the Lord. I do know one of his best friends was George Whitefield, who was an amazing evangelist of his day and would stay often at Ben Franklin's house. So you know they're going to talk. So anyway, in this swamp that they'd found themselves stuck in, of all these competing interests from the different colonies, the different states, Benjamin Franklin got a point of order, got everyone's attention, and he said, "Gentlemen, if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid?" And he called the Constitutional Convention to come to prayer. And although there's some disagreement about how that actually worked out, apparently it wasn't moved and voted on and seconded, but after that session and during the rest of the sessions, or before and after sessions, throughout the entirety of the Constitutional Convention in 2 weeks, all of those competing states, and you know how competitive we can be, all of those states formed the Constitution of the United States in 2 weeks. That is astounding. But they went to prayer. God rules in the affairs of men. John Adams. Because we have no government armed with the power capable of contending with human passions unbridled by morality and religion, avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. George Washington. This was his farewell address. It's a little long, but hang on. I love the way George Washington talks. He is an amazing thinker. I now make it my earnest prayer that God would have you and the state over which you preside in his holy protection, that he would incline the hearts of the citizens to cultivate a spirit of subordination and obedience to government, to entertain a brotherly affection and love for one another, for their fellow citizens of the United States at large, and particularly for their brethren who have served in the field. And finally, that he would most graciously be pleased to dispose us all to do justice, to love mercy, and to demean ourselves with that charity, humility, and pacific temper of mind, which were the characteristics of the divine author of our blessed religion, and without a humble imitation of these examples in whose things, we can never hope to be a happy nation. Do you see how miserable the left is? They're very unhappy, and they're very frightened. And they don't understand what we can be so optimistic about. But we know that God rules in the affairs of men.